Now in this video I'm going to talk about some of the great things that Jamaica and Jamaicans have achieved throughout history. I will begin by declaring Jamaica to be the most influential country in the world. Now let me just qualify that by saying the biggest and most extensive entities in life are not necessarily the most influential and most powerful. In life, we find that the most powerful and influential entities don't have the most extensive bodies with particles spread out over a very wide area. Some of the most powerful entities are constructed of small bodies with particles very compact and concentrated. As particles the more concentrated the particles, the more unified they are and the more power they're able to conjure, the more power they're able to generate out of their totality. Now, I will begin with Marcus Mosiah Garvey, one of Jamaica's great national heroes. Marcus Garvey was born in 1887, and in my opinion, Marcus Garvey was and is the father of the Jamaican brand. Marcus Garvey is the father of international Jamaica. Many may beg to differ, but that's okay. Garvey's body of work, politically, in literary terms and in practical terms, is absolutely vast. He led the largest mass movement in Black history. No less than 5 great African revolutionaries from the African continent had cited Marcus Garvey as their mentor, either directly or via his work. Patrice Lumumba, Nelson Mandela, Steve Biko, Kwame Nkrumah, Jomo Kenyatta, these revolutionaries, in their own words, declared Marcus Garvey as their mentor. Marcus Garvey's work laid the philosophical foundation for the formalization of the Rastafari philosophy and religion. Now, let's move on to number 2, because these are just synopses of great people. Not just great people, but great people and great occurrences. Now, number 2 is the Norman Manley Law School in Mona, Jamaica, established in 1973, and was the first law school in the Caribbean region named after a prime minister. It is a part of the University of the West Indies, highly prestigious. I believe to date it is still the only law school in the Caribbean region that is named after a prime minister, either alive or past. However, it has since established 2 other sections on different islands. Third, Michael Manley, son of Norman Manley and also a prime minister of Jamaica. As prime minister, Michael Manley was also a major internationalist. He did major work in internationalizing the Jamaican brand. He was an international political player and a political figure. Michael Manley was the first leader in the Western Hemisphere to boycott the racist South African apartheid regime, when many countries were either afraid, reluctant, or simply didn't want to boycott the white South African government for their wrongdoings. Michael Manley decided he was going to be the first. Now, in the Western Hemisphere, now it has to be said that Jamaica had a very long history of taking a stance against the apartheid government, because in 1956, as way back as 1956, even before Jamaica achieved its independence, Jamaican leadership boycotted South African apartheid goods. They refused to trade with South Africa, also refused to engage in travel to or from South Africa as way back as 1956. 4. Hip-hop was created by a Jamaican, Kool Herc. Kool Herc invented hip-hop at the age of 16, along with his sister. His sister, we don't hear a lot about the contribution of his sister in the hip-hop movement, but between Kool Herc and his sister, they created hip-hop. Back then, he had a system called the back-to-school jam. He was even responsible for creating the breakdancing, which was, back in the day, associated with hip-hop and the hip-hop performance. Now, this all took place in the Bronx, in the USA, back in the late 60s and 70s, because even though Kool Herc was born in Jamaica, he went to the US at an early age. Now he created this genre in the Bronx, and while plying his trade in the Bronx, he became associated with two other people that were to become legends themselves. None other than Africa Bambaataa and Grandmaster Flash. Kool Herc is not as well known to the world in the same extent as Africa Bambaataa and Grandmaster Flash, but in fact he was more instrumental in the creating of the genre. He actually not just promoted it, but he laid the foundation. More than that, he created the thing. Well, after that, Africa Bambaataa and Grandmaster Flash were highly instrumental in taking it to the world. They actually extended the genre. Now, there's something very interesting about this. Kool Herc was born in Jamaica. Grandmaster Flash was also born in the Caribbean. He was born in Barbados. Africa Bambaataa was born in the Bronx, however, of Jamaican and Bajan or Barbadian parents. So what this is telling us is that hip-hop is a Caribbean product. It's a Caribbean music. It's a Caribbean music genre. Number 5. A Jamaican started the Haitian Revolution. Haitian as in Haiti. The name of this Jamaican was called Bookman Dutty, born in the 18th century. He was actually a slave. He was actually captured in Senegal, in Senegambia, transported to Jamaica as a captured slave. Then he found himself, or took himself, to Haiti, became a leader of the Haitian Maroons, and a voodoo priest, became a very powerful figure in the revolutionary movement. In fact, he actually started, as I earlier stated, he started the Haitian, he started a rebellion that developed into the Haitian Revolution. In fact, he was such a powerful and influential figure that when the French finally caught him, many months after the uprising, when the French government finally caught him, they cut his head off and paraded it in public in an effort to scare the other slave from rebelling. That's how influential and powerful he was, that they thought he was so responsible for the psychological disposition of the rebelling slaves, that if they saw how his head was cut off and paraded, they wouldn't continue the rebellion. But they continued the rebellion, which led to the Asians eventually becoming the first slave rebellion, the first set of slaves that rebelled extensively enough to liberate themselves from slavery. Nowhere else on the planet had that taken place. The only time in history that a set of slaves had taken themselves out of slavery totally and 100% without any negotiation was then. The Asians did that. All other rebellions on the planet that led to liberation of the slaves always ended with some sort of negotiation between the slaves and the slave owners, or between the colonized and the colonizers. Number 6. I declare Jamaica is athletics sprint capital of the world. Now, I explained earlier that a country or a thing doesn't have to be the biggest in order to be number one or the most, or outright the most powerful, because having the greatest amount of mass does not determine that you have the greatest amount of strength. The impact of Jamaican athletics spans way back to the 1890s, when we had Alfred Downer and G. Foster. But those athletes weren't allowed to compete on the world stage. It wasn't until the 1930s that Jamaica were allowed to compete internationally. Even one of our late prime ministers, Norman Manley, he was an exceptional athlete, an exceptional sprinter, who in fact in his day would have qualified for the Olympic finals in sprinting if Jamaica was allowed to compete. However, in 1930, we were allowed to compete on the world stage. And between 1930 and 2019, Jamaica had won over 74 gold medals combined from Olympic championships, world championships, and Commonwealth championships. That's a tremendous amount, and we're only talking about the gold. We're not talking about the silver and bronze. We could talk about the silver and bronze, but the number, this is only the number for the bronze, for the gold. The legends are too numerous to mention here. We're talking about people like, Arthur Wint, Herbert McKinley, Donald Quarry, the great Merlin Hottie, and the names continue. The modern names, I needn't mention the modern names because they are very well famed. 7. Jamaica created a religion. Now, we have to ask ourselves, in the history of the world, how many countries have actually created a religion? Some of us may take the existence of religions for granted, and we may say there are several religions in the world, but how many countries are actually responsible for creating any of these religions? Not many. For Jamaica, a small place, small Jamaica, to have created a religion that in the minds of certain people in the world, the people that move the world, the people that make decisions, that move things in the world, they see Jamaica in a way that the Jamaican people wouldn't imagine. This is one of the reasons Jamaica has so much difficulties, because Jamaica is very well feared by people that know how these things work. So for Jamaica to have created a religion, whether or not we like the religion, whether or not whatever we think of that religion, the fact is that religion was created in Jamaica, and that is a major thing in the psyche of the people and the world. It is the existence of that religion why Jamaica has such a powerful influence on the planet and on people's psyche. It's one of the reasons why Jamaica is so highly respected, despite the fact that many Jamaicans are so ill-behaved. Jamaica, the memory of Jamaica still has a very powerful effect on the psyche of the world. This religion was, I don't want to use the word create, but it was formalized by Leonard Howell in 1935, because in 1935 Leonard Howell founded the first group, the first meeting place, if you wish, of the Rastafari movement. But the Rastafari movement has its roots on the slave plantation where slaves were longing to go back to their homeland, Africa. Marcus Garvey came along in the 20s and before that and gave the idea a philosophical body, a philosophical a philosophical completion. Leonard Howell took that philosophy and added a body and a practicality, added a practicality to it, and put a foundation. He grounded it, if you will. Number eight. Jamaica is music capital of the world. Jamaica is music capital of the world. Jamaica has 600 elite musicians, dead and alive. Jamaica has 5 active music genre, very active around the world, very active globally. There is no other country on the planet that has 6 music genre popular around the world. Jamaica has that. So I declare Jamaica music capital of the world. And these 5 music genre don't even include hip-hop. There's an argument to include hip-hop, if we will, but we don't. Now, number 9 is infamy rather than fame. Jamaica was the only place in the history of the world where piracy was legal. Not only was piracy, well, Jamaica used to be the pirates' capital of the world, but above that, it was the only place in the world where piracy was legal. Not only was piracy legal, one of the king of the pirates became a governor general. Well, he didn't become a governor general; he became deputy to the governor general, which was lieutenant governor. This was Captain Henry Morgan, Sir Henry Morgan, because he was knighted by King Charles II of England. Legend had it that he invaded Spanish territory at a time when England was brokering peace, or had brokered peace with the Spaniards. By the time he came back to Jamaica, he was a criminal, so he was arrested and sent to England to be hanged. But when the King of England take a good look at his record, he thought this man was so cruel and so brilliant, the empire could use him. So he knighted him and sent him back to Jamaica, not only to fight against the Dutch, but to destroy his fellow pirates. So he became Governor General. Sorry, not Governor General, he became Lieutenant Governor. And the story could go on and on. But yes, this was in 1674. He became Lieutenant Governor in 1674. And 10th but not least, Jamaica invented a form of warfare called guerrilla warfare. This system of warfare was invented by the Jamaican Maroons. Now, guerrilla warfare, what guerrilla warfare is, it's a form of warfare where you fight against the opponent undercover, because it is usual that guerrilla warfare is used when the opposition is superior in number and equipment and other things, other facilities. So rather than fighting the superior opponent openly, you fight them undercover. Well, the Maroons of Jamaica were superior in that respect, because they used the cockpit mountain as their fighting zone, where the British soldiers, they were fighting against the British soldiers. Within that area, the British soldiers didn't stand a chance. One Jamaican Maroon calculated that they could take on 30 British soldiers. So there was one for every 30 British soldiers. There was one Jamaican Maroon up against them, and this was the invention and the establishment of the system and principle of guerrilla warfare, which now is used internationally. Ever since that time, it had been used internationally around the world. Whenever a country is trying to liberate itself from a colonial force, they invariably use the guerrilla warfare strategy, which is really the Jamaican strategy, or the Jamaican Maroon strategy. So there are many great people and great things and great occurrences that one can cover about Jamaica. This is only a handful. Many more to come.